far away in a quiet valley, surrounded by tall pine trees and silver streams that glimmered under the moon, there lived a little dragon named Theo. He wasn't a fearsome dragon like the ones in old stories. Theo was small, with soft green scales that shimmered faintly in the starlight and wings no bigger than a butterfly's cloak. His eyes were gentle, wide, and curious, always searching the night sky for something magical. Theo loved many things: the warmth of the fireflies that glowed along the river, the smell of sweet clover that grew on the hillside, and the way the moon looked like a lantern hung just for him. But as much as he loved his valley, there was one thing Theo longed for most of all. Every evening, as he curled up on his patch of moss, he listened to the world around him, the owls hooting softly from the trees, the crickets chirping in steady rhythm, the breeze humming through the grass. The sounds were beautiful, but they weren't quite what his little heart wanted. Theo longed for a bedtime song. He had heard once, while flying close to a village at dusk, the gentle lullabies human parents sang to their children. The sound had floated on the air like a warm blanket, soft and soothing, wrapping the little ones in peace. From that night on, Theo wished for a song of his own. But there were no humans in his valley, no one to sing him a tune. He tried humming to himself once, but it only made him giggle because his voice crackled like a tiny flame. He tried listening to the stream's gentle burble, but though it was calming, it wasn't the same. A bedtime song needed words, gentle and sweet, to guide him into dreams. One evening, as the stars blinked awake above, Theo sat by the riverbank and sighed, his wings drooping. "If only I had a bedtime song," he whispered, his voice carried away by the breeze. "Maybe I could finally sleep as softly as the little ones in the village." The moon above seemed to hear him, glowing brighter, spilling silver light across the valley. Fireflies rose from the grass, flickering softly, as though the night itself was answering his wish. Theo lifted his head, his eyes shining with a mix of hope and wonder. And just then, a gentle sound drifted across the meadow, a hum so soft it blended with the rustling leaves, a melody light as a feather. Theo's heart skipped, his ears perking up. Could it be a song? He stood quickly, his wings trembling with excitement, and followed the sound into the moonlit forest, his little claws tapping quietly on the moss. Something magical was waiting for him in the shadows of the trees. Theo padded softly into the moonlit forest, his claws clicking gently on stones hidden under moss. The melody was faint at first, like a breeze carrying a secret, but the closer he walked, the clearer it became. It wasn't loud or grand. It was the kind of song that curled around the trees like smoke from a chimney, warm and gentle, meant to soothe rather than impress. He paused beneath a tall pine tree, his wings twitching. "Who could be singing out here?" he whispered. His little heart thudded with excitement and a touch of nervousness. He followed the sound deeper, weaving between trunks that stretched like dark towers, their needles shimmering silver under the moon. The melody drifted between them, guiding him, comforting him, like someone holding his claw and leading him forward. Finally, he came to a small clearing bathed in moonlight. There, perched on a low branch, sat a nightingale with feathers so soft they looked dipped in silver. Her eyes sparkled as she tilted her head, and her beak opened once more, letting out that same gentle hum that had reached Theo's valley. Theo gasped, his tail curling with joy. "It was you. You're singing the bedtime song." The nightingale blinked at him curiously, her voice as soft as falling dew. "I didn't know anyone was listening. I sing each night to the stars so they do not feel lonely." Theo stepped closer, his scales catching the moonlight. "It's the loveliest sound I've ever heard. I've been wishing for a bedtime song of my own, and I think you might be the one who can help me." The nightingale tilted her head, thoughtful. "A dragon who longs for a lullaby? That is unusual, but not impossible." She fluttered her wings and hopped down onto the grass, her feathers glowing faintly in the silver light. "Tell me, Theo, why do you wish for a song?" Theo sat down, his tail wrapping around his feet. "Because the crickets sing and the stream hums, but they don't have words. I heard once, far away, human parents singing to their children. Their voices wrapped the little ones in peace, and I wanted that feeling too. To fall asleep with music carrying me away. The nightingale's gaze softened, and her feathers puffed slightly in thought. A song is not just sound. It is a gift. To receive it, you must promise to carry its peace in your heart. Theo nodded eagerly, his wings twitching with excitement. I promise. If you give me a song, I'll carry it forever, and I'll hum it whenever I feel lonely. Maybe I'll even share it with the stars, like you do. The nightingale's eyes gleamed as if she liked the idea. Then we must make the song together. My voice alone is not enough. The forest has its melody, the river its harmony, and perhaps even your little dragon heart has a sound to add. Theo blinked. Me? But my voice crackles like fire. The bird chuckled lightly, her laugh like bells in the breeze. Even fire has its song. We will find it. She spread her wings and gave a single clear note, so pure it seemed to glow in the clearing. The crickets answered faintly with their rhythm, and the river far beyond hummed low in the background. The nightingale turned to Theo expectantly. His chest tightened, but he closed his eyes and let out a soft hum. It wobbled at first, then crackled faintly, like a spark leaping from a flame. Theo winced, but the nightingale chirped in delight. There. That sound is yours, warm, glowing, gentle. Together, we can weave it into the song. Theo's heart soared. He hummed again, a little louder this time, his crackling tone blending with the nightingale's melody. The crickets swelled their rhythm, the trees seemed to lean closer, and the clearing filled with a lullaby unlike any he had ever heard, part bird, part dragon, part forest, all wrapped together into something calm and new. When the song ended, the clearing was hushed, as though even the stars above were holding their breath. Theo's eyes sparkled, his whole body trembling. That was beautiful. The nightingale bowed her little head. That was your first bedtime song, Theo. And it belongs to you now. Theo curled into the soft moss at her feet, his eyelids heavy but his heart lighter than ever. Will you sing it with me again? The nightingale hopped closer, tucking her wings gently. As many times as you need, little dragon. Tonight, the stars will not be the only ones with a lullaby. Theo lay curled on the moss for a moment, his little chest rising and falling as the echo of the lullaby lingered in the clearing. The nightingale's silver feathers shimmered in the moonlight, and her eyes glowed warmly as she tilted her head. Do you feel it now? She asked softly. Theo lifted his head, blinking sleepily. I do. It's like, my heart feels lighter, and my eyelids want to close, but not because I'm tired. It's because I feel safe. The nightingale nodded. That is the gift of a song. But lullabies grow stronger when more voices join. Come, Theo, let us wander deeper into the forest. The night is full of creatures who hum their own little tunes, and together we will make the sky's lullaby. Theo's wings fluttered with excitement. He stood, shaking moss from his scales, and followed her as she flew gently into the trees. The crickets kept up their steady rhythm, and the dragon hummed faintly, testing his new spark-crackle voice. The nightingale's melody wove between them like silver thread. Soon they reached a grove where a family of owls sat perched on thick branches. Their round eyes blinked at the pair as the nightingale landed on a nearby twig. Owls, she called softly, would you lend your voices tonight? One of the owls hooted low and steady, a sound that rolled like a drumbeat. Another answered with a higher note, soft and trembling, like the edge of a flute. Theo's eyes widened as the forest seemed to fill with their call, blending seamlessly into the lullaby. It's beautiful, he whispered, his scales glowing faintly. The nightingale smiled. Every creature has a voice, and when they are joined with kindness, the world itself begins to rest. Theo stepped carefully through the grove, his small claws brushing leaves. He added his spark-crackle hum, weaving it into the owl's hoots. The forest seemed to lean closer, the pines swayed gently, their needles rustling in harmony. As they moved deeper, the nightingale led Theo toward the river. Its silver surface glittered under the moon, and as the lullaby drifted near, the river joined in too. The water gurgled and whispered over smooth stones, making a gentle, rolling harmony that wrapped around the dragon's heart like a blanket. Theo sat on the riverbank, his tail curling, and sighed happily. Even the river is singing. Yes, the nightingale replied. The earth itself hums if you listen closely. And listen Theo did. He heard frogs croaking a low bass line from the reeds, and fireflies buzzing faintly as they blinked their golden lights in rhythm. The whole forest had become an orchestra, each creature adding its thread to the tapestry of sound. Theo closed his eyes and hummed again, this time louder, bolder. His crackling tone didn't feel strange anymore, it felt warm, like the glow of a campfire on a cool night. He let it out in long, slow notes that rose and fell gently, until the forest seemed to echo back his sound. The nightingale perched on a stone near him, her silver feathers gleaming. She sang with him, their voices twining like two streams merging into one. The owls hooted steadily, the frogs croaked low, the river whispered, and the crickets carried on with their endless rhythm. Theo opened his eyes, tears shimmering in the corners. This isn't just a bedtime song for me, it's a bedtime song for everyone. The nightingale nodded. Yes, Theo. That is the true power of a lullaby. It does not belong to one, it belongs to all who listen. The dragon's little body trembled with happiness. He turned his head toward the sky, where the stars sparkled brighter, as if listening. Then let's sing until the stars themselves fall asleep. So they did. Together, dragon and bird, river and forest, all hummed their lullaby into the night, weaving a song that carried beyond the trees, out across the fields, and perhaps even into the dreams of children fast asleep in distant villages. Theo's eyes grew heavy again, but this time, he didn't resist. With the nightingale's voice flowing beside him and the forest humming all around, he felt as though the world itself was tucking him into bed. He whispered softly, I think I've finally found my song. And the night answered back with silence so peaceful, it felt like the deepest sigh of a dream. Theo rested by the silver river, his little body curled on the mossy bank, his wings folded neatly at his sides. The lullaby of the forest still wrapped around him, the nightingale's shimmering melody, the owl's low hoots, the cricket's endless rhythm, and the river's steady hum. It was like lying inside a song, every note a thread weaving a blanket of peace around him. But though his eyelids fluttered, Theo didn't want to drift away just yet. He opened one eye and whispered, Nightingale? Will the song vanish when I fall asleep? Will it disappear when morning comes? The nightingale hopped closer, her silver feathers glowing faintly in the moonlight. She tilted her head, her eyes kind and thoughtful. Songs are like dreams, Theo. They do not vanish. They stay inside you, waiting to be remembered. Even when you sleep, even when the day begins, the lullaby will still hum in your heart. Theo frowned softly, lowering his gaze to the rippling water. But what if I forget the words or the sound? I'm only small, and my voice crackles, what if the song gets lost? The nightingale fluttered down beside him, her tiny claws resting lightly on a smooth stone. Do you want to know a secret? Theo nodded eagerly, his scales glinting. The sky, the nightingale said, spreading her wings to gesture upward, has always been singing. It sings in the rustle of leaves, in the hum of rivers, in the flutter of wings, in the fire that warms your chest. The lullaby is not something you can lose, it is already part of you. When you close your eyes and listen carefully, you will always hear it again. Theo's heart swelled, his chest glowing faintly as if a small flame lived inside. He lifted his head toward the stars, which twinkled brighter as though nodding in agreement. So the lullaby isn't just mine, it belongs to the world, and the world sings it back to me? Exactly, the nightingale said gently. Every creature, every sound of the earth adds its voice to the song. When you hum your little crackling tune, you're joining that great choir. That's why it feels so warm, because you are never alone in it. Theo curled tighter into the moss, his tail wrapping around his body like a ribbon. His eyes were heavy now, but his heart was light. He looked at the nightingale sleepily. If I remember the lullaby tomorrow, can I sing it to others? To the stars? To the fireflies? The nightingale's feathers shimmered like liquid silver. Of course. That is what lullabies are meant for, sharing. The stars may seem far away, but they listen closely. And so do the quietest creatures, the ones who need a gentle voice to remind them that night is safe. Theo sighed happily, the soft crackle of his little hum escaping again without him even trying. The sound blended with the forest symphony, like a spark falling into a warm fire. The nightingale began to sing once more, her melody slower now, softer, designed not to awaken but to soothe. The owls answered in hushed tones, and the frogs croaked more faintly, their voices lowering as though even they were slipping towards slumber. The river's hum softened into a hush, its surface smoothing under the moonlight. Theo's eyelids closed at last. He breathed in, deep and slow, then out, his entire body melting into the moss as though the earth itself had cradled him. The lullaby wrapped tighter around him, not with arms or wings but with sound, a blanket woven from voices, water, and stars. His last thought before drifting fully into dreams was simple, quiet, and filled with joy. I'm not just listening to a lullaby. I'm part of one. The nightingale, watching him curl into the most peaceful sleep, smiled softly and folded her wings. The forest hushed to match the rhythm of Theo's breathing, the stars above twinkling in gentle harmony. The little dragon who had once longed for a bedtime song was now wrapped in one forever. Theo's breaths deepened, his little chest rising and falling in the slow rhythm of sleep, but the song around him did not stop, it followed him into his dreams. The nightingale's lullaby, the river's gentle hum, the cricket's rhythm, and the owl's soft calls became threads of light that wrapped around him as he drifted away. And then, in the quiet of his slumber, a new world opened. Theo found himself standing in a meadow that glowed like silver silk stretched across the ground. Each blade of grass shimmered like starlight, and tiny blossoms pulsed softly as though they were breathing. Above him, the night sky arched wide, but the stars were closer than ever, so near, he felt he could stretch his claw and pluck one down like a lantern. His cloud-like wings fluttered with joy. Am I dreaming? He whispered to himself, though he already knew the answer. His voice echoed in the air, warm and crackly, but instead of sounding small, it resonated beautifully, carrying across the meadow like the final note of a lullaby. The stars above twinkled in reply, and then, one by one, they drifted lower, surrounding Theo like floating lanterns. Their glow wasn't harsh or dazzling, but soft, like candlelight through silk curtains. They bobbed gently, circling him in rhythm with the lullaby still humming faintly in the background. Theo's heart leapt. The stars are singing with me. As he walked through the meadow, his little claws pressing softly into the glowing grass, more wonders appeared. Fireflies larger than any he had seen blinked in gentle patterns, spelling out shapes in the air, swirls, hearts, spirals that looked like the paths of dreams themselves. In the distance, a hill rose, its sides blanketed in luminous flowers that opened slowly as he approached, releasing shimmering notes instead of fragrance. Each flower sang a tiny sound, and together they wove a harmony that folded gently into the larger song. Theo climbed the hill slowly, savoring each sound, until he reached the top. There, nestled in the soft glow of flowers, was a bed shaped perfectly for him. Mossy and feathered, lined with light, it seemed to hum faintly, waiting for him to settle in. Theo curled into it without hesitation, his tail wrapping neatly around his body. The flowers sang louder for a moment, then hushed, as though tucking him in with their voices. Above him, the stars dipped lower, casting a silver net of light that shimmered gently, swaying like a cradle. From beyond the hill, Theo saw shapes begin to form, dream shapes made of mist and song. A fox curled on the grass, its fur glowing faintly like moonbeams. A rabbit hopped slowly by, leaving little sparkles in its path. A tiny child appeared, curled up on a pillow of stars, their breath steady and calm. All around him, dream creatures were gathering, each one bathed in peace, each one humming softly as if they too were wrapped in the same lullaby. Theo blinked, his wide eyes shimmering. This dream, it belongs to everyone. The nightingale appeared then, perched on a branch made of silver mist, her feathers glowing brighter than before. Her voice drifted through the dream, clear and soothing. You see, Theo, a lullaby is not just for one. It grows as it is shared, touching hearts far beyond the singer. Tonight, your wish has spread, and the dream song you helped create is weaving across the night. Theo felt tears gather at the corners of his dream self's eyes, though they sparkled like stars rather than falling. I thought I only wanted a song for me. But now, it's like the whole world is singing, and I'm part of it. The nightingale fluttered her wings, sending a soft chime through the air. That is the gift of bedtime songs. They may begin with one heart, but they always find others. And they always return when you need them. Theo nestled deeper into the glowing bed, his eyes heavy even in his dream. The stars swayed overhead like a lullaby cradling him, and the dream creatures curled nearby, their breaths syncing with his. For the first time in his little dragon life, he wasn't simply lying awake wishing, he was fully, deeply, wonderfully resting, held by a song that belonged to the night itself. The dream folded closer, wrapping him in warmth and silver light, carrying him toward the deepest part of slumber. And as the meadow hushed, Theo whispered in his sleep, "Thank you, for my song." Theo's dream cradled him through the long night, soft and endless, until the edges of morning began to stir. The meadow of stars slowly faded, the glowing flowers dimmed like lanterns being gently covered, and the lullaby that had carried him deeper and deeper became a hum so faint it blended into silence. The little dragon stirred on his mossy bed by the silver river. His wings twitched, his tail uncurled, and he let out a tiny sigh that crackled like a spark. The forest around him was still, hushed, waiting, wrapped in that delicate moment before dawn when the world is half asleep and half awake. Theo blinked, his eyes opened slowly. The first strands of sunlight had begun to slip between the trees, painting the moss and water in soft gold. The owls had tucked themselves into their hollows, the frogs had gone quiet, and the crickets hummed slower now, as though yawning. The nightingale still perched nearby, her feathers glowing faintly, her eyes warm as she watched him wake. "You slept," she said softly, her voice like dew on leaves. "And you dreamed." Theo lifted his head, blinking drowsily. He stretched his little wings and yawned, a puff of smoke curling from his nose. "I dreamed of stars and flowers, and of creatures humming songs together. It was like the whole world was singing." The nightingale fluttered closer and settled on a rock beside him. That was the gift of the lullaby. You carried it with you, and it carried you into dreams. Do you see now? You no longer need to search for a song, it is already inside you. Theo's heart glowed warm in his chest, and he pressed a claw softly against it. "I can feel it still. Even though the night has ended, the song hasn't left me." "Exactly," the bird replied. "The world sings to those who listen, and now you are part of that music. Whenever you hum, whenever you breathe slowly and remember the sounds of the night, the lullaby will return." Theo sat quietly, letting the morning breeze brush over his scales. He could still hear it faintly, the rhythm of the crickets, the hush of the river, the crackle of his own flame-like voice. It was no longer something outside of him. It was something he could carry always. The little dragon rose, his steps light on the moss. He padded to the riverbank and gazed at his reflection. His small green face looked back at him, sleepy but calm, and for the first time, he didn't look lonely. He hummed softly, just a few notes, and the sound rippled through the forest. The nightingale joined with a gentle trill, and together their voices curled into the dawn sky. Theo turned to her with shining eyes. "Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for sharing your voice with me." The nightingale spread her wings, her feathers catching the new light. "And thank you, Theo, for adding your spark. Remember, lullabies are not about perfection. They are about comfort. They are about love. Theo nodded slowly. He knew he would never forget. He began the walk back to his valley, the sun climbing higher behind him. The pines swayed gently in farewell, the river hummed its goodbye, and the fireflies dipped low before disappearing into the grass. Every step felt different now, not heavy with longing, but light with knowing. When he returned to his little mossy hollow by the hillside, he curled himself into his nest. The place felt the same, yet not at all. The air seemed softer, the grass warmer, and the stars above, though fading into daylight, seemed to wink at him with promise. He tucked his wings close and whispered, "I have my bedtime song now." As he closed his eyes, a final thought drifted through him like a feather. He would never be alone in the dark again, because the lullaby was part of him, woven into his heart, glowing brighter than fire. And though the day had begun, Theo drifted back into a lighter sleep, a nap filled with warmth. His hum mingled with the sounds of the valley, and it was as if the whole world leaned close to listen. The little dragon who had once longed for a song had found one. And it would be with him forever. Above the valley, the clouds drifted peacefully, the sun glowing gentle and kind, and the wind carried a whisper, not just for Theo, but for every child who closed their eyes to listen. You are safe. You are warm. You are loved. And your sweetest dreams are waiting for you tonight. The forest hushed, the valley sighed, and the whole world seemed to breathe in harmony with Theo's little lullaby.